Here we have a SAT math problem. That is, we have to solve a cubic equation. So that is, we have to find the value of x in the given cubic equation. Okay, I think we can solve this cubic equation by factoring, and we can factor the cubic expression we have on the left side by grouping. Let me rewrite the given cubic equation. That is x to the third power negative 3x square positive 3x negative 9 equals to 0. Okay, here we can factor this expression by grouping. That is, we can consider the first two terms as one group, the next two terms as another group. Okay, so what's the greatest common divisor for the terms in the first group? So clearly, it's x to the second power, I mean x square. So we can factor x square out from the first group. Okay, if I factor x square out from these two terms, what will I get over here? What will be the rest? So what will have left over in these two terms? To know that, we have to divide both the terms by the one we factor out. That is, we have to divide both the terms, both x cube and 3x square by this x square. When I divide this x to the third power by x square, so x square will cancel. We just we have only x left in the first term. Now I'm going to divide the second term, negative 3x square by the one I factor, that is x square. So this is x square will cancel out. I'll have negative 3 left in the second term. The same thing we have to do for the second group. So what is the greatest common divisor for this 3x and this 9? So it's 3. So we can factor 3 out. So what will have left in the first term, second term, if 3 is factored out? So to know that, I'm going to divide the first term 3x by the one I factored out, that is 3. So this 3 cancel out. So I have x left in the first term. When I'm taking this negative as it is, when I divide this 9 by this 3, clearly it's 3. Okay, now we have two terms. We have to consider this is one term. This is another term. We have only two terms. So what is the greatest common divisor for these two terms? Clearly, x negative 3 is the greatest common divisor. So we can factor x negative 3 from these two terms. If I factor x negative 3 from these two terms, what do I have left in the first term? So clearly it's x square, because if I divide the first term by the one I factor out, x negative 3, this x negative 3 will cancel out, have left with x square in the first term. And now, to know what I have left in the second term, I have to divide the second term by the one I factor out, it is x negative 3. So this one will cancel out, so I have left with positive 3. So here equals to 0. Okay, here the product of these two binomials equals to 0. So whenever the product of two quantities is equal to 0, one of the two quantities is equal to 0, or both the quantities can be 0. So we are not sure, because here both the quantities contain variables. I'm not sure which one can be 0. So either the first one can be 0 or the second one can be 0. So if I solve for this one, what I need is I have to add 3 to both sides to solve for x. So I'm getting x is equal to positive 3 over here. And to solve for x in the second case, I have to subtract 3 from both sides. So I get x square equals to negative 3. But I need the value of x. Here I have x square. To get rid of the square, I need to take square root on both sides. So the square root and square root cancel out. I get x equals to, whenever I take square root for a number, the sign in front of the square root has to be positive or negative, and the square root of negative 3. So here we have a negative value inside the square root. So what is it called? It's called imaginary. Whenever we have a negative value inside the square root, it will be considered as imaginary. So, but we need the real value of x. So the real value of x is just 3. So the answer for this question is x is equal to 3.